All right, a new study by the Media Research Center highlights how the big three TV networks, the broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, have covered the impeachment inquiry from its origin. According to the Media Research Center, the evening newscasts since September 24th, when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi first announced the probe, have been 96% negative and 4% positive towards President Trump. To determine the spin, the MRC says its analysts tally all statements about the president from reporters, anchors, or nonpartisan sources. That same study also found that in total, the three networks spent over 400 minutes on the Ukraine scandal, more than any other topic involving the Trump administration during that same period. And joining us now to talk more about this is a former federal prosecutor and author, John O'Connor. John's new book is called Postgate: How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. John, thanks for joining us tonight. Quite a title of the book there.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes.
But it tells a lot, yes.
Well, you say the Washington Post betrayed your client, Mark Felt, who was known as Deep Throat. He was second in command at the FBI, outed as the, quote, man who brought down the Nixon White House. This came many years after the Watergate reporting. Explain to us how you came to know Mark Felt and represent him.
Well, I knew that Mark Felt was Deep Throat from 1976 on, and just by happenstance found out that one of my daughter's friends from Stanford University was his grandson. I immediately asked to go up and talk to him. He had never admitted it to his family. And after a couple of years after about a year of prodding, he agreed to come out and have me go publish his story. So I did that. And then, as I detail in the book, and it's many years of dealing with the Post in one capacity or the other, I started smelling something fishy. And the Post's reactions to me and what I wanted to write were very curious, and I started researching. And I was always a big fan of the Post and a big fan of the Watergate reporting, and came to find out that their reporting on Watergate was tremendously slanted by omission, by focusing, of course, on the White House, but away from the other things they knew, such as the CIA and the things that were being listened to, which was out-of-town Democrats talking to young ladies down the street. And let me hook it up, if I can, to today's issue.
Well, that's really my next question, because I wanted to, how does the media coverage of this current impeachment process compare to what we saw during Watergate?
It's really, Watergate was the template, because Watergate, somewhat truthfully, focused on President Nixon, who did a few things wrong, and the White House did some things wrong. But what they did was they didn't shine the light on other things that they knew. Now, in the President impeachment case, the real question isn't whether this thing is quid pro quo-ish or not. There's a little pressure here and there. Yes, you can minimize it. But the real question is, would an investigation into Burisma and or the Bidens be adequately predicated and in United States interest? And the answer is absolutely yes. Since early 2014 with President Obama, it has been the number one United States interest in the Ukraine to stop corruption, especially as it deals with the gas industry, which is the major bread and butter of the Ukraine. And what happens as soon as Joe Biden is appointed to be the point man on that very issue? He talks to his son's partner. And as the United States starts seizing funds of Burisma, Hunter Biden and his partner are hired, and magically, no one ever sends a letter to the British court to get $23 million that's been impounded.
I think there is a deep appetite in this country to find out more about what happened with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. I think that investigation is going to continue thanks to Republicans in Congress and also other, elsewhere in the DOJ, perhaps. One more question I wanted to ask you, John, before we had to part ways. The Ukraine whistleblower's attorney, Mike Zaid, said that his client's identity is no longer relevant, but still there's a lot of discussion now about the need to have this whistleblower's identity remain anonymous. Do you agree?
Absolutely not. First of all, the whole idea of keeping a whistleblower's name anonymous is to prevent him from retaliation by his employers. His employers know who he is. It doesn't matter if Joe Schmo from Kokomo knows who he is. The only reason Schiff wants to keep his name out of the news is because once he is publicly vetted, people will know that this is a fellow with an axe to grind. Remember, his referral of this case is an opinion. It was his opinion that what the president doing was interfering in the election. That's an opinion. You need to get into the facts. And so if he is going to be questioned, you will see that this is merely a setup. He's a guy that's trying to protect John Brennan from indictment and Joe Biden.
But we know that line of questioning is going to come up because Republicans are going to have the opportunity to cross-examine these witnesses. How they get there is another question, but we know they'll continue to push on that. We want to remind everybody at home to pick up John's new book. It's called Postgate: How the Washington Post Betrayed, Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. Thank you very much, John Connor.